Okay, so I was just reading through some articles here on the EFF, so that's the Electronic Freedom Foundation, about Wisconsin passing, lo and behold, a ban. Well, it hasn't passed yet. It passed the Assembly, which is effectively state Congress, and is heading to the state Senate. So, to ban VPNs. To ban VPNs in the state of Wisconsin. I'm going to run through this article and hopefully gives my 2 cents on what really, why this is a really bad idea. Not only because it doesn't work, but there are some true considerations that individuals are going to want to really understand. Now, the EFF has a ton of resources on this page. You can locate your senator, your congressman, your representatives, write them. But we'll cover all that in a moment. Let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at this article, and I have some thoughts on the first half-ish. So, lawmakers want to ban VPNs, and they have no idea what they're doing. So, I'll go ahead and read so you don't have to. Remember when you thought age verification laws couldn't get any worse? Well, lawmakers in Wisconsin, Michigan, and beyond are about to blow your mind. I'm not surprised. It's not blowing my mind. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all, actually. It's unfortunately no longer enough to force websites to check your government issued ID before you can access certain content, because politicians have now discovered that people are using VPNs to protect their privacy and bypass invasive laws. Their solution: entirely ban the use of VPNs. And that should have an exclamation point at the end. It should say, yes, really. So, my thoughts here. I have several. So, VPNs are overwhelmingly common. So, a great example is I have a paid VPN, and I have one that I host myself for remote access. Cool. Which one of those gets banned? Because I'm not a company. I am a individual who uses my private VPN that I host to access my home services, my home network, whenever I'm not at home, along with other things like Parsec and Tailscale. These are all things that individuals can just host, right? Now, I use PIA right now. I may switch. I don't know. We'll see. But this places the onus of age verification on companies that are not necessarily good at protecting data. So, it's already proven to be an issue with services, including but not limited to Discord, the dating app called T, which was despicable to begin with. And guess what? An identity verification service. I have them right here. They have an ongoing data breach. They are an identity verification service. They should know better. They should have the structure to do this without a data breach. We cannot use our government issued IDs for this type of verification, because that opens up a lot of dangerous identity theft risks. And we'll cover that in this middle tab here. There's some good information there as well. So let's continue, because this is Discord. I have Discord installed on every single machine that I interact with on a regular basis. I'm not giving them my ID. I'll just find another way to do it. And that being said, what's going to happen? They're going to require that one to have age verification as well. There's no safe way to do this right now. And I don't think there ever will be. Let alone all of these other services and platforms and content that are just not built or designed or have the means to secure this data in any meaningful way, really. So let's continue. As of this writing, Wisconsin lawmakers have escalated their war on privacy by targeting VPNs in the name of protecting children. I have thoughts on this. We're going to get to it. In AB 105 SB 130, it's an age verification bill that requires all websites distributing material that could conceivably be deemed sexual content to both implement an age verification system, not their jobs, and also to block access of users connecting via VPN. The bill seeks to broadly expand the definition of materials that are harmful to minors. I have not read this bill quite yet, but I can imagine it is something to the effect of, I believe it was a Supreme Court justice that said, I don't know what porn is, but I know it when I see it. Harmful to minors beyond the type of speech that states can prohibit minors from accessing, potentially encompassing things like depictions and discussions of human anatomy, sexuality, and reproduction. These are all actually important topics for appropriate age groups to understand. I took sex education in 7th and 8th grade, and then once again in high school, because whenever I was in the 6th and 7th grade, I was living in the state of Texas. It is required to have some type of sex education, not necessarily the same courses, because we did have to have parental consent to take these courses, but also we did have to have the education. So if we did not get parental consent from our guardians, there was an alternative course that was very, very dumbed down, and we still got some form of education. It is mostly about health. So if the parental consent form was signed, it was a mixed class. We had boys and girls. If it was not, there was 2 separate classes, boys, girls, and they covered specifically for those genders. In those classes, they didn't mix. They talked about health. They talked about how it works. They didn't really talk about anything beyond that in those, because I had a friend whose parent was very, very against the idea of sex education, and they had to take the course. It was required by the state of Texas at the time. So that would be, if this was a Texas law, they would have to completely change the state curriculum and requirements. It is important to understand how your body works. And if you don't have access to that education in your school, the internet is the only other option. Or a public library. Oh, wait. No, actually, as far as I'm aware, they still have anatomy books and stuff like that. But, school libraries have a lot of stuff that is prohibited or banned, and this is not the video for that. We can talk about that some other time. Continuing. Actually, I do have thoughts. We'll read this next paragraph, and then I have thoughts. The following are notable patterns. As we've explained previously, lawmakers, prosecutors, and activists in conservative states have worked for years to aggressively expand the definition of harmful to minors to censor a broad swath of content. This is somewhat misleading, and I'll explain in a moment. This is to include diverse education materials, sex education resources, art, and even award-winning literature. Okay, so this is somewhat misleading. I love the EFF. They are a necessary organization because not everybody has technical or digital literacy, and these are the things that we need to be able to communicate. This is somewhat misleading. So I can only really speak to the state of Texas and the state of Mississippi because they're the two states that I live in. From time to time, I'll go to Mississippi. I'll stay there for a little while. But in the case of what they are prohibiting is certain materials in schools. In schools. I could still go to a public library and find many of these. And that it depends on the library what they have. Yes, it is important to note this and understand this. It is not that they are just outright banning access. You can go to a Barnes & Noble and still find these books. You can still go to a used bookstore, find these books. You can still go and buy these things. You can still have access to these. Libraries are one of the few exceptions to a government-funded organization that still has access. You still have access to these. Granted, schools, like, I don't know, an elementary school should probably not have books depicting sexual acts. I'm just saying. That is the spirit of the law that they're trying to get across. Now, granted, you can argue with me all you want. That's still banning books. No, it's not. You can still go and obtain these legally. Shut up. That's not how that works. We're not burning them. We're not arresting you for having them. We're removing them from places where they should not be. But that is also still a conversation for a different time. Now, we're going to read down to the next bold headline there, and then I'll kind of talk about some feelings I have towards this. Wisconsin's bill has already passed the state assembly, which is effectively their state congress, if from what I understand how their state government is set up, and is now moving through the Senate. If it becomes law, Wisconsin could become the first state where using a VPN to access certain content is banned. Michigan lawmakers have proposed similar legislation that did not move through its legislature, but among other things, would force internet providers to actively monitor and block VPN connections. That's a fucking problem. And in the UK, officials are calling VPNs a loophole that needs closing. This is actually happening, and it's going to be a disaster. Okay, before we move on, I'm going to cover my thoughts on that section we just read, and then before we move on to here's why it's a terrible idea, why it's a terrible idea. So under the guise of protecting the children, which is such a straw man. I'm sorry, like that. Yes, let's protect the children. But also, I've said this and it's been echoed by others. The internet wasn't created for children. It's not a safe place. It never has been. It never will be. As long as there is some level of freedom to navigate the internet as you see fit, it's not a safe place. It's not for children. Just like a war zone is not for children. Joining the military is not for children. Working in factories, not for children. Working in manual labor, not for children. These are things that are not for children. Going into an adult store is not for children. It's not intended for them. This is not a place for them. It is not the government's responsibility to monitor and police what children see and do. It is the parents, it is the adults, it is the guardians, it is the people who take care of these children's responsibility. Are there going to be ones that slip through the cracks? Absolutely. But at the same time, it's not difficult. It is not difficult for parents to do this. You see this thing in my hand? This thing called a cell phone? Don't get one for your kids. And if you do, understand how to set parental roadblocks on them. It's not hard. There's hundreds of thousands of articles for this. This thing here, I have my router in there. You know what the router has? I can block all sorts of shit. Now, granted, I use PFSense, which is a little extra, but sure. But you can block entire parts of the internet on your router. You can set up firewall rules. It's not difficult. There's usually documentation that's really easy to follow. It is not the government's responsibility to protect your children. You understand? Your children. It's not the government's children. It's not how this works. If you don't think you can control or manage keeping your children safe in an increasingly digital world, then you probably shouldn't have children, or do a little research. It is your job as the parent, as the individual, to care for these children and make sure that they are brought up correctly, or in your eyes correctly. Granted, it's a lot of the time it is easier said than done. I'll give it that, because I manage my I have offered to manage my family's network and stuff, but see, that doesn't fix certain things. So okay, the phone is connected to the home Wi-Fi or the tablet or whatever it is. They leave the home, what happens? Well, that's where on-device controls come in. And yes, I use an older phone. This is my day-to-day phone. But it is never the government's responsibility to put these roadblocks up. One thing that comes to mind is a little bit conspiracy minded, but we've seen it time and time again. This is the government attempting to place more control onto people. We are the free West, right? We're not free if we can't travel through the pipes of the internet and access information we want to access. It's almost 7:30 at night, and I am drinking an energy drink because this has got to get done. Sorry. It is definitely to place more control on the individual so the government can see more of what you're doing. Tor almost got completely wrecked. Tor is very important, especially for people who want privacy, or people who are doing actual real-world cybersecurity work. Or, a little closer to home for some people, trigger warning, I suppose, people who are abuse survivors, who are in places where speaking it out about the government is punishable. You can be prosecuted for it. Reporters, dissidents of corrupt, dangerous governments, researchers. Oh, even more legitimate uses if you want to stay within the realm of businesses and in like work. I use a VPN for work. They issue us a VPN, we access it. I work from home most days of the week. Researchers trying to access information in places that you would normally not be able to access them. Reporters. There's the list can go on and on, and that's kind of the point. Is if you ban the use of VPNs, then you disrupt tens of thousands, billions of people. I don't know what's the population of planet 52.3 billion or something like that. I'll have to check that later, but you disrupt so many lives just by saying you can't use it. Now, there's probably some like random clause in these laws that says, oh, since you're a business, you could use them. No. See, here's the thing. How are you going to track this? How are you going to enforce it? Is it going to be on the ISPs to report this? Is it on the websites? Is it on the individual? Is it on grandma to report their grandchild for using a VPN? It's also almost kind of unenforceable, but we'll get there eventually in a conversation. Back to it. Why is this a terrible idea? And I agree with this section. I don't really have many thoughts to expand. VPNs mask your real location by routing your internet traffic through a server somewhere else. This is true. This is how they effectively work. For me, my VPN to access my home network it's a direct connection. I am going out into the internet. I'm going to Cloudflare saying, I'm looking for this. Boom, bam, done. I use dynamic DNS. So I can find my home network easily, but securely. When you visit a website through VPN, this is effectively saying how it works. When you visit a website using a VPN, they see the server's address, the VPN server, not your IP address. And I like this. This explanation here. It's like sending a letter through a PO box and not your home address. Very, very good example. So when Wisconsin demands that websites block VPN users from Wisconsin, they're asking for something that's technically impossible. It's not technically impossible, but it is just not worth it. It is a ton of expense and labor for not a whole hell of a lot of anything. So it's wasted effort is what it is. Websites have no way to tell if an VPN connection is coming from Milwaukee, Michigan, or Mumbai. This is true. I route my personal VPN through Quebec. I'm not going to say where in Quebec, but that's where it routes through. Because I don't want it in the US. I also want something that's relatively close. And with internet speeds how they are and latencies how they are now, not a big deal. I'm not really actually gaming through it anyway. I'm usually checking a file or doing something like that. I'm using it for legitimate reasons. Websites subject to the proposed law are left with these choices: either cease operation in Wisconsin or block all VPN users. VPN users elsewhere or everywhere, God, just to avoid legal liability in the state when the state's terrible law is attempting to break VPN access for the entire internet. This would actually do that. Because consider this. I effectively know what my public IP address will be based upon my ISP. I can go and kind of figured that out by shutting down and restarting my router and looking at my public IP address. ISPs are given blocks of IP addresses to issue to customers. And that is generally how it's done. There are some blocks of IP addresses that are provided to, well, not provided, but that VPN providers have. So, an imaginary one, 10.20.1.2 to dot, or to 10, like 20 dot something. Like that block belongs to imaginary VPN service. And those are the IP addresses. It's not impossible to find this information, but there are hundreds of VPN providers. And that's kind of the problem. And some of these IP addresses get reused over and over again because we have a finite number of IP addresses. And it's an unintended consequences of, yeah. So these are some good points down here. Already kind of covered the businesses. Oh yeah, no, school students, research grads use them all the time. Allows. I actually didn't even read that. That's a good point. University students. Covered vulnerable people. Regular people just want privacy. We want privacy. We're tired of this bullshit. If I want to watch Doctor Who on Netflix, I need a VPN to do it. It's end of story. Content blocking is a thing, which is also why we should, as a society, look at physical media again. Yeah, I know it takes up space. Oh no, I have to get up and change the disc to go to season 2 of whatever the fuck I'm watching. It doesn't matter. I've started slowly but surely collecting more and more physical media of things that I enjoy watching because things get removed from these services, and I just don't care for the government knowing where I'm going on the internet. I'm not doing anything illegal. It's not the point. Normal people want privacy. It's just the way it is. Most people I know now use some form of VPN, and a lot of routers, a lot of mid-range and high-end routers that you can go and just buy at a store. Micro Center, Best Buy, Walmart. You can just figure out what your VPN provider, their content IDs, their IDs and their APIs, and you just drop it into the router, and it just routes all the traffic. Now you're placing the responsibility and the trust in a VPN provider rather than your ISP, but there's some resources out there for that. Privacy nightmare. Go ahead and read this yourself. I kind of covered it. The data breaches. They have an article here linked. They talk about getting hacked. There's a ton of them. Harmful, and I said this, harmful to minors is a crutch. Go and read that. They pretty much talk about everything I talked about and more. And this is kind of, yeah, this last sentence of that really does say it all. Is history shows us these decisions most often harm marginalized communities. And it's true. History shows us this. And it won't even work. I'm not even going to really go through that. A false dilemma. This whole entire article is great. Now, what do we do? So I'm going to actually share a link to a video in the comment section that came up just as I was getting ready to, that I saw on my feed, just as I was getting ready to sit down and record this. It uses many of the same resources, but we're going to cover this article too, just in general the problems that can come up. And I'll link the articles as well down below. I don't need this anymore. Let me find it again. History. So a really good resource, and I've used his before, is this content creator, Techlore, has a great tool that they have created to decide what VPN you're going to use. Protect your laptop. What is this? Oh, I haven't watched that yet. Okay. But they have a list of VPNs, pros, cons. Are they open source? Are they not? I tend to prefer open source. But I'll link his video as well because he was a great help to me whenever I was deciding which VPN to use. So let's talk about this article. 3 cybersecurity risks posed by age verification. And I'm not going to read these. I'm going to go down the list, 1, 2, and 3. 1, data breaches, identity theft, and fraud. We already have experienced this. Again, I covered this earlier. Discord, the T dating app, and an actual identity verification service all have had data breaches. Discord was 70,000 records. T dating app was 72,000, and I don't know how to say it, but the AT or AU10TIX, whatever they are, however you say their name, the data verification service is an ongoing data breach. We don't know how much data was extracted, how many records were actually exposed. We don't. And that's actually really scary. We're putting the responsibility of data security on companies. This is not what they do. Discord is not a data collection. Well, they have some data collection, but they're not equipped to secure this type of data. And we also can't necessarily verify if once we send in a piece of verification, like a state-issued ID, if it is, in fact, deleted after the fact. We also don't know if a random guy in a call center doesn't have a phone saying, oh, here we go, this one looks good. That's all they need. That's all they need. Oh, but that would never happen. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. It's a leaky faucet problem. Number 2, data risks posed by third-party services. So this is kind of what we're talking about with the AU10TIX thing, is there a third-party service for ID verification. If you aren't doing it yourself, you're hiring a third party. And there's no real way to guarantee that these are going to be safe, especially in today's world. There's no real way to verify that. And we're talking about security here, and you can see down here I have 2 available updates. Those are broken. I fixed them. I don't know why it's not going away. But you can see I have Discord running. I have Steam. I have up here on my second monitor on this computer, I have Parsec. I have an SSH client. I have a bunch of stuff installed here. And just because I'm using Linux doesn't mean I'm safe, so I have to understand the risk. And politicians don't understand the risk whenever they're saying you have to verify your age with government ID. You are now taking a picture of something that is linked directly to your identity and sending it to a company that you may or may not trust. It is one thing when all they're collecting is clicks, views, time in the app, whatever it may be, and it's another whenever they can link that directly to you. You're no longer part of a cohort, you're an individual product. And people don't like that. And that also opens up data risks posed by third parties. It happens all the time. And not just with age verification, it happens all the time. For other reasons. And number 3, more realistic phishing campaigns. Holy shit. This turns whaling into spear phishing. This will allow, and actually I didn't even think about that. Ooh, I need to read that article. But this whole thing right here is probably the scariest part. So, scenario, because let's face it, these things are going to happen. Grandma, or your mom, or some elderly person in your life signs up for a service where they have to do age verification. Well, now that company is part of a data breach. They're going to target the easiest people to fool, which are going to be the elderly and the very young. And now they have name, address, date of birth, eye color, hair color, all sorts of things. All sorts of things are linked to that ID. And now they have all of that. And that's all they need. By the way, did you know if you know somebody's ID number, you could probably find their actual phone number very easily? Yeah. That's OSINT, man. That's OSINT, baby. Open source intelligence. This is scary. Now, I think it's a little disingenuous that this is right in the middle of the page, is NordVPN. Nord is fine if all you're really using it for is to get past content-related blocking. But at the same time, these are still valid. These are valid issues that will come up, that have come up. So what do we do? Well, in the case of Michigan and Wisconsin, contact your politician. Contact your rep. And don't just say, this won't work. Give reasons. Give real examples as to why you have to have this access. Why age verification, giving them your ID, is a bad idea. I can think of 2 personal reasons outside of accessing my home network remotely that I have to have this. And not only that, I'm going to use a topic that most people just have feelings about. The 2A community, the Second Amendment community, gun owners like myself, we have proven that this does work. But what you have to do is contact your politician. And not even just people in Wisconsin and Michigan. If you live in, I don't know, Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona, wherever you live, preemptively be like, hey, if you support this, I'm not going to support you. Reasons why age verification doesn't work. Boom, 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 boom. Why it's a bad idea. Boom, 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 boom. Hell, handwrite a letter. Make them have to read it. Be coherent. Don't be violent. Don't be threatening. It's not the way to do it, because then you might get a knock on your door, and that's never pleasant. We already live in a society where our data is constantly under scrutiny and collection. We don't want more of this. We're tired of it. And VPNs are one of the few privacy tools we have that, yeah, we have to pay for them sometimes, but at the same time, we do have to have this to stay safe. Now, again, I'm going to link down in the description the video that I referenced earlier, this article, and these two articles. The big thing we have to remember is that we hired these politicians with our vote. Whether you believe your vote matters or not is a completely irrelevant. They work for you, not the other way around. And I'm sorry if I keep looking this way, because my OBS is over here and I'm making sure that, I don't know, I keep on looking at myself. I don't know why. I'm just so pretty. And again, this is also another reason, like my prior video, we should probably start self-hosting a lot of things, like cloud storage and a VPN and like all sorts of shit. Like I have a DNS that I run in my home, so the issue with Amazon a couple weeks ago doesn't happen to me. Now, granted, all of my stuff goes through Cloudflare, and I was kind of screwed for that, 12 hours? But as far as the VPNs go, this is getting ridiculous. Contact your representative, voice your displeasure with this. Make sure it doesn't get passed in your state, because now Wisconsin and Michigan are going to affect the entire internet with how VPNs actually work and function and their real purpose. Their purpose isn't just to access Netflix or Hulu or something in another country so you can watch content that isn't available in yours. It's about privacy. It's about accessing information anonymously and securely, and it's has nothing to do with children. It has everything to do with control. But another talking head, right? Another talking head out of the way. I didn't expect to do another one so quickly, so soon, but I do really appreciate everybody who watched. If you have thoughts, comments, concerns, personal experience, leave it down in the comments. I'm probably not going to do a thumbnail for this. I'm just going to throw it up on the channel and see what happens. Try to do this one a little bit more structured, because I had to read through the article and kind of compose my thoughts a little bit. But what do you think? Let me know down below. Links, as always, down in the description. Until next time, my name is Dan. I'm a tech dweeb, and I love networking. Go out there, learn something. Call your senators. Tell them to not do this. Until next time. Bye.